Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our first Digital Connect event of Spring 2021 semester. Today, we will be focused on virtual career fair success. My name is Alyssa Rametta, and I serve as an Assistant Director at Career and Professional Development here at Virginia Tech, and I'll be your moderator for today. So before I have the panelists introduce themselves, I'm going to give a brief overview of what to expect in the next hour and a half and our structure. So we'll begin our conversation today with our most commonly asked pre-submitted questions that some of our audience members submitted during registration. And then we will open the panel up to live questions. So you can submit your questions on the right side. There's a discussion tab. You can type in your questions at any point, and we will get to as many as well in the first 45 minutes. Then at 4:15, we will end the panel discussion and this broadcast. You'll go back to the main lobby and enter the chat booths that you can talk to any of our representatives today here, and also move into the networking booths with career and professional development advisors to ask more questions. And you'll be able to experience what it's like to attend a career fair in person. I will let our panelists give a brief introduction to themselves and their companies. We are waiting for one representative from Mantech to join us. She's having some technical difficulties, such a thing in 2020 and 2021. But in the meantime, let's have our panelists introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Geico, and then the Southern Teachers Association, and then hopefully Mantech. Geico, you can take it away.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Allison Hanson. I am the corporate and technical campus recruiter here at Geico. There's only one of us, and it's me. So I'm really excited to get to give you guys my unique experiences as a recruiter and some of the things that I've seen.
Hi, I'm Maggie. I work with Southern Teachers, and we specialize in teacher recruitment for independent schools in the South. So we work with schools that are kindergarten, pre-K through 12, and we do teacher placement as well as some administrative placement and school consulting. But obviously what's important to you all is the teacher placement aspect of it. And so really we talk about things from the job search point of view and how we help candidates connect with the 650 schools that we do work with, and how we can help in your job search that way.
Great. Thank you both so much. So I'm going to go right into our pre-submitted questions because we have a lot of them. And at any point for our audience members, please enter some questions into the discussion board, and we'll get to as many as possible. So the first question for both of you, what would you say are the major differences that you see between an in-person and virtual career fairs?
So one of the things I would say a big difference is the ability to just jump in, jump out. People think I can just log on and log off. What that can mean, the danger of that, is someone logs on for 5 minutes without necessarily being professionally prepared. That's something we've seen a couple times in the fall. You know, you're in your dorm room. That's absolutely fine. Take a couple minutes, look at what's behind you. You know, if your roommate is playing music, maybe ask them to turn it down, have showered for the morning, just general things that you would look after. If you were going to a job fair event, just make sure that that's first on your checklist to take care of, because we have seen some people miss those cues because it's been a stressful year.
100%. I really couldn't agree more. Like, I definitely have had people who popped in and I'm like, oh, are you wearing a shirt? You know, you kind of like, and I know, Alyssa, you laughed, but it's been a thing. And so it's just one of those aspects of it that we don't think of. But even more than not being just prepared for the day, not being prepared to know what you're going to say. Be ready to talk about yourself. You know, having your 2-minute personal statement ready to go is super important. Maybe even having a question or two prepared. It's going to make you seem more interested in the company itself. And that will stand out to your recruiter.
Great, thanks. And feel free to chime in after each other as well. You don't have to just answer one time. So if you can feed off of each other. And I may add my 2 cents in too as a career advisor. So thinking post, pre-fair, how should students be preparing for the career fair, and what materials might they need that would differ from an in-person career fair?
So one of the things you can do, and that kind of crosses over, is linking to any social media like a LinkedIn or something like that, which can be great if you have a LinkedIn set up and it's easier to do digitally. And so you have your resume and then you have these additional digital materials. Again, just make sure that those materials are as reviewed and refined as your resume itself. That's something we've seen people do that can be a great addendum to your personality when you're constrained in the way you present it. But then also I would, just going back to that earlier question, one of the things that is limited by a digital career fair instead of an in-person one is your ability to browse. When you're in an in-person fair, you can just pop in and pop out, and that's okay, from different stalls, and you run into someone or they pull you in with a question. So, go in with some researched places you want to talk to, and then don't be afraid to browse around and look at the others. And you can say, I came here with some questions for some other people, just saw yours and would like to talk to you. That also works.
You're right. I'll agree. I see more people who often come to my booth. They're like, oh, I wanted to talk to Geico. And it's like, well, that's great. And I'm excited that you're here, but have you looked at other places, from just a recruiter oh my goodness, guys, recruiter perspective, making sure that you're actually getting out there and getting your resume seen is very important.
Great. Thanks. So I think you both started to touch on this a little bit, but what would you say are the most important qualities that you're looking for in a potential hire?
I'll hop in first. Mine think that we're going to have very different answers to this, so I'm really interested to hear what Allie has to say as well. Thinking to what Geico looks for, we're looking for data-driven individuals. So usually, you have, regardless of what field you're in, you're going to have some analytical exposure, right? You're going to be somebody who's always looking for the next step, ambitious. Most people within the company have promoted. 1/3 of all associates every year promote from their current position into a new position. So we want to be sure that the people who are coming in are ambitious and are looking for the next step in their career. We're looking for people who are looking for those careers, not just the job. Loyalty has been something that has built Geico from what it was in 1936 to what it is today, and something that we're going to keep. So data-driven, ambitious, and passionate to work, guys.
Thanks, Allison.
Yeah, so we definitely are coming from different angles and different communities, which I think is great. So just as a bit of background on how Southern Teachers works, because we work with independent schools who don't necessarily have to hire secondary teachers with certifications, a lot of the schools we work with will look for candidates with a strong academic background in their field. So fluency in their language, a strong STEM background, and some experience with kids. You don't necessarily have to have gone through an education program, although it's wonderful if you have. So that being said, what they're looking for is that strong academic background, and then some experience with kids. If you've been a camp counselor, that's a great experience. If you've done some tutoring, awesome. And then independent schools, they're looking for someone who's going to be a part of their community. I'm sure everyone remembers at their high school, their teachers were also their coach, or they ran this after school program. They were invested in that community to create a good experience for the students in so many different ways. And so someone who really is willing to be a part of the school community and help the kids grow in more than just standing in front of the class every day. But that is, of course, the key component. So that it's just that strong academic background and the willingness to invest in the community.
Great. I'm going to step away from some of the pre-submitted questions for a moment to answer a question submitted in the discussion board. So how do you avoid the barrier of Zoom fatigue that we all know very well right now while you're doing these interviews and virtual career fairs? So how to battle that Zoom fatigue?
I'd love to share my answer for this one. Very, very excited. I have the opportunity to speak to several students a week. And doing that back-to-back Zoom calls are often my days, right? So one thing that I have done is I've actually started taking a couple of meetings standing up. And I know that sounds really interesting, but making sure that you have your area set up just as Ali suggested, making sure that whatever is around you is professional and appropriate. Standing up while you're doing interviews is not going to be frowned upon so long as you're doing it in a professional manner. So that's one way that I know that I do on a daily basis to try to counteract some of that fatigue.
Honestly, for me, the answer is very simple. It's just hang upside down, like do some stretches. Bend, if you can do a headstand, do a headstand against the wall, or just bend at the waist. Just take a second and like bend over, be in your body, act like you're a human in the world instead of just facing the screen. And it makes all the difference just to breathe for a second and not be looking at something, not putting your attention to anything else, just to stop for a moment. That always helps for me.
Thanks. And I'm going to take a moment to introduce Tiffany here. Hi. So glad that your internet and Brazen could finally come through. Welcome, welcome. Why don't you just take a moment, Tiffany, to introduce the company that you're representing and maybe your number one thing that you're looking for in a potential hire at a virtual career fair. That's one thing that we've covered so far.
Sorry, it's the number one thing I'm looking to hire?
Yeah, what you're looking for in a potential hire. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay, so first, hi everyone. So sorry for the delay. It's so ironic. This discussion is about how to prepare for a virtual career fair. And of course, my my laptop was not prepared. So don't do what I did. So I'm actually calling in through mobile phones. So yay, iPhones. To help navigate through work laptop issues. So I'm Tiffany Ann. I am the college recruiting manager and diversity outreach lead for Mantech International Core. So I run the whole program of interns and new grads and work with diversity partners and create pipelines for Mantech. And it's super fun. It's super invigorating. And it's amazing because I get to meet awesome students just like yourselves. When I'm at a virtual career fair, one quality that I always look for in a candidate, in a top candidate, is ambition, drive, and innovation. We're in a changing world all the time, as you see. And 2020 was like the epitome of what a changing world looks like. So someone who can adapt and be resourceful and innovate and help us all, keep up with the adjustments, help us all survive, in innovation, whether it's systems and STEM, in any part of business. So that's what I'm looking for.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you were able to join us. So the next question is, what about the students who have never been to a career fair before, in person or virtual? What advice do you have for them for their first career fair being on Brazen?
Say I think that you all giving them Brazen as their platform, first and foremost puts them at an advantage almost for their first virtual fair being on Brazen, right? So you guys are going to be able to have that one-on-one interaction with your recruiter. You can make it last. The impression that you have in that one-on-one setting is more impactful, is extremely impactful, especially compared to what it was like in a one-on-one setting, even at a large-scale recruiting event on campus. I don't have a million other students, with their resumes in my face. It is me and you. So use that opportunity to make the impact that you want to make. You guys are really at an advantage.
That's great. Thanks. Anybody else chime in?
Sure. So I second that. So it is a very interesting thing, virtual career fairs. So if you can imagine, if you guys have been to, in-person career fairs, just imagine you're walking through crowds and you're fighting through, your classmates trying to get to the recruiter or the engineer at the stand and trying to fight for time. So it's very true what Allison mentioned, is that this is such an advantage. This is your time. So don't be afraid. If you've never been to a career fair, let alone a virtual career fair, now's the perfect time to start. Now's the perfect time to jump feet in, because you do have that dedicated, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever the system allows you to have, you have that dedicated face-to-face one-on-one time with that recruiter or that company representative. So the best thing for you is to be prepared, right? You already know you're going to get one-on-one video time with somebody from that company. Now it's time to make a good impression. Come prepared with questions. And I can tell off the top of my head right now, I can tell you the top 5, I think it's 5 most asked questions from students in these virtual chat rooms or virtual career fairs is, what does your company do? What does the internship program look like? Where do I apply? How has COVID been treating the employees, and how's your company been, helping its employees through the pandemic? And how long will it take for me to hear back? So those are the most common questions. You can use those, but I'm going to say, you know what, take it one step further. Ask more about the position. Do some research of the company prior to speaking, right? If you're asking, well, what does your company do? It's, you can look it up. Let's make a good impression. Come prepared with meaningful, lasting questions that really get a real conversation going between you and that person, because you do have that 10 minutes all to yourself. And, that's how you make that connection in that virtual setting.
And just to build off that, because of the duration, and you're right, that one-on-one focus, it almost is more like a mini job interview than a brief connection at a job fair where you get someone's card, you get a freebie piece of swag, and then you move on. And so we always tell students and candidates that the best interviews, you come away feeling like you had a conversation with the interviewer. You felt like there was an interaction and an exchange. So questions are a good way to do that. And also just rolling with the technical difficulties. Something's going to happen. You're going to talk over each other. In a normal first job search, these things can be anxiety inducing anyway. Over tech, it can be a little bit worse because your cues are just a little off. Mm-hmm. Just take a deep breath, slow down, say, I'm sorry, what did you say? You can just slow down and resort to good manners. That's always the simplest thing to do in a job fair when you're meeting a lot of new people. Worst comes to worst, take a step back and be polite. And that's going to help you build a stronger interpersonal interaction with that person and leave a good impression, even if you're thrown off your game a little bit due to the nature of the interaction.
That's a really great point. And actually, I'm going to jump over to another question having to do, because you mentioned interpersonal communication over video chat. Does anybody have tips on how to build an authentic connection with an employer over video chat?
So I'll start. Don't be afraid to feel vulnerable. It's sometimes it's scary, whether it's in a face-to-face interview or video chat. Don't be afraid to feel vulnerable. And you people will make mistakes, and you might say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, but it's okay. I mean, take me for instance. My laptop wasn't working. I was late. I thought it was, I checked it for 4 to make sure I could connect. And in the end, it didn't. And, I messed up and I didn't prepare well enough. And that's okay. We're in a virtual setting. We all make mistakes. So just know that if you want to build an authentic relationship with the person you're talking to, be your authentic self. Smile, be happy to talk about you and your passions. Your hobbies, why you are in this field, whatever you're interviewing for, why are you interested in the first place? Do your research. Oh, this company has produced, this widget, and that's so cool because this goes into my passion. So be your authentic self when you show up. Smile, be interested, ask meaningful questions.
Great. Anybody else? Authentic connection over video chat?
I think it's been built for me pretty naturally by just saying, this is sort of the space I'm calling from. Like, if there's something, at the beginning of our talk, you mentioned your house plan, and it's just exactly that sort of thing where we have these different spaces. We're not relating to each other from the same space. So you can say, even if it's something is like, oh, I'm just adjusting my light, or let me move my camera, like acknowledging the moment you're in, the space from which you're interacting gives the person a sense of where you're at, the setting you're in. If your roommates are going to be making noise, you can say, I'm sorry, the most safest place I could call from was my dorm room. You may hear some noises, or there's construction outside. Just acknowledge the setting for what it is. If something happens, explain what it is, roll with it, and move on. And that's going to show your potential employer how you handle difficulties, problems, what have you. Just take accountability for it and say, this is what it is, and this is where I am.
Adaptability, right? Like that's what they're showing, that you can be adaptable to those situations. For myself, it all kind of ties together, just showing, the candidate, or not even showing the candidate, excuse me. I'm showing the recruiter that you're human, and it boils down to also us showing you guys that, we're human, like Allie and Tiffany, Allie, Tiffany, and Alyssa kind of, alluded to, right? Like, this is my gecko, this is Gary. Like, I purposely have included I'm in my bedroom, and Gary the gecko is hanging out on my dresser. So, like, I bring people in, and it's like, this is, where we are, this is what we're doing. And we've been on video calls for a while. So as you guys are entering into these video chats, understand that the people you are with are likely less nervous than you are. So take that deep breath, just like answering questions, you want to think about your responses. Don't be afraid to take a deep breath and assess the situation, right? Assess where they're at. And assess what you're doing and what your camera screen looks like. Just take a deep breath and internalize where you're at, and hopefully get past it, right?
Side note, I love, Allison, that you have Gary the gecko behind you. I absolutely 100% back that up. Is you want to be your authentic self, put what you love around you. So also, other side note is, I didn't know his name was Gary until you just said that. So thank you. Now I know his name is Gary.
Ask your recruiter in your next Geico interview, because it's impressive when people know Gary's name.
Exactly.
Great, thanks. So somebody asked in the discussion group how to make the most of those potentially up to 10 minutes worth of chat with a recruiter on Brazen. Time just seems to fly by, and they went to a career fair in the fall semester, so they know how quickly that can go by. So maybe how to best utilize those up to 10 minutes that you may have with a recruiter. I know some folks mentioned preparing some statements in advance, so if anybody wants to continue into that route.
I would really say, when you're doing your research and you're thinking of questions you want to ask, it's easy to sort of frame it as, what's going to make a good impression? What question do I think they'll be impressed by? And that's great, but I would stop, take a second, and actually think about, what is it you want to know? Or do you have some concern about this company, of why I think this might not be right? Do you have something you're genuinely excited about and you want to know more? Really think about what it is you want to gain from the interaction. And so that will likely leave a better impression on the recruiter, but will also make the most of the 10 minutes for you.
Right. And even to go further, like, Tiffany mentioned doing the research on the company beforehand, not even doing research on the company beforehand, but researching the positions that you're interested in. Nobody's going to have the information like your recruiter is going to have. Nobody's going to be able to give you that insight. So when you guys are interacting with us one-on-one, don't be afraid to say, on my resume, do you see red flags here? Get advice that we can see and we can directly control in the moment. So skills that we look for certain positions, technologies that are used at our companies that we frequently look for, and even down to, hey, look at my resume, make sure this is in the right order or formatted correctly. Those are things that we can help you with. So let us help you there.
I agree 100% with both Allie and Allison. Essentially, it comes down to pre-event preparation, and optimizing based on what you want and what you want to get out of the meeting with us or any recruiter or staff that you sit with. And that could be exactly just writing down a couple questions that you want to ask. The resume critiques always great to do. So it's essentially, imagine it like an aspect of virtual networking. So I've led a few networking, whether virtual or in person, little lessons or, one-on-one flash talks, if you want to call it that. And even if you research or Google, how to network, the first and foremost thing they say is write down what you want to get out of it. What are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? So if it's, okay, you applied to these jobs and you want to know, hey, what's the status of your application? Prepare. You're going to be talking with, this company, and you applied. Make sure you write that down. You want to ask them about this job. You want to talk about their resume. You want to ask them, whatever questions that you want to get to your goals. That's probably the best way to keep yourself on track, because when you are your authentic self and you get into a casual conversation, it's very easy to also get sidetracked onto more fun things and to, new questions come about. But if you have it right in front of you, if you've prepped and you know what you want to get out of it, you can help yourself and keep yourself just to optimize that time.
I will also just add that a great thing to close with is always, what would be the next step? Mm-hmm. Should I email you? Do I submit an application? Where do I submit it? Knowing that that's a first interaction at the career fair, and it's at the stage where you are seeking out as many opportunities as possible. So what you're trying to do is get to the next step of actually applying, of furthering that interaction. So always know what happens after this, and go ahead and just ask that question.
That's a great point, and actually will lead me to my next question. A student asked pre-submitted, how can I increase my chances of getting an interview after meeting you at the career fair?
Following up. It's that simple, because it shows also that you have some kind of drive, that you are somehow interested. It's not just being like, oh, we met you in person and we know you now. And it's showing that you're somehow diligent and on top of it and trying to move this process forward. You've made a connection and take it somewhere. There's a reason the job fair is called Connections. Follow up with the recruiter if you have their contact information, or if you've asked and you know what the next step is, just follow up on whatever the next step they've told you is, because that's how the system works and that's how they take in new applicants.
And like, even if you've connected with somebody at a career fair, don't be afraid to go to their careers website and look at the other opportunities that are available either. Because what I have seen happen is I'll send out a link to somebody and they may apply or they may not, and then they'll follow up with me about opportunities. And it's like, well, when's the last time that you visited our career site and applied to something? And I know that seems a little, you're like, but I want to talk to somebody first. I understand, but getting your application and your resume there is going to be step one sometimes. So that's my biggest encouragement, is don't be afraid to go and seek the opportunities on their website. And in your follow-up, say, hey, Allison, I went to Geico's website on my own and I applied to 15 jobs. Now, make sure you're tailoring your resume to each of those and are qualified. But that's great. Then I have kind of a jumping off point even. So if you want to take it like a step further too, don't be afraid to look at what's out there.
And I'll add, always ask for feedback. So when you're out at a job fair, when you're out at a networking event, wherever you're at, and you're talking with recruiters, of course, as we know, recruiters are talking to, hundreds of applicants. Recruiters and hiring managers are looking at hundreds of resumes, right? So how do you stand out? The question is, okay, how do I stand out? How can I just be seen above the rest? And I'll be quite frank with you. I will. And, not everyone's going to fit, right? Each individual job, each position, each level, they're going to require specific things. And recruiters and hiring managers are going to want to find people that fit and align with XYZ, right? As the position requires it. So how can you make sure you fit, or how can you make sure you get an interview? Ask for feedback. Much like the resume review that Allison had mentioned, bring your resume. Hey, I love this position. This looks like something I want to get to. Based on the job description, it may not be, I may not be there exactly. Be real with yourself too. I may not be exactly there. How can I get there? I've had students come up to me at career fairs, not necessarily wanting a job or not, of course they want a job, but not necessarily, expecting, but they came up to me and was really humble saying, what else can I put on my resume? What's missing on my resume to make me stand out? And again, to be that vulnerable, real self, and to know that maybe for that particular position, there might not be a match now, but if you keep asking for feedback, getting direction from the recruiters and the hiring managers and hiring teams, you will get there. So don't be afraid to ask what's missing and to ask for feedback on how to continuously improve.
Great. Thank you all so much for the insight. Speaking of follow-up after the fair, we had a question asked, and I get this question a lot as a career advisor, is should these students try to connect with you on LinkedIn? And if you are okay with that, how should they go about that?
You can absolutely connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is just Tiffany Gann. And in order for me to accept your connection, you got to tell me a joke. No, I'm just kidding. You can definitely tell me a joke if you like, but just send me a request and I'll be happy to connect with you.
You can absolutely add us on LinkedIn. We do suggest, because we're a hiring agency, there's a office LinkedIn that we suggest people add to instead of an individual's. But yeah, absolutely, because it can be a resource for so many people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here at Geico, all of the recruiters, we do have LinkedIn accounts for each of the recruiters for our regions. So that's really exciting that not only here do we connect you with recruiters, a recruiter in general, but we're going to connect you with the correct recruiter. So it just a step past that. So if like our management development programs or even our technology development programs, you might speak to me or you might speak to one of the Chelseas in Virginia Beach, right? So we have lots of different people who handle things. So I'm always encouraging candidates and applicants to reach out to their respective recruiters, even a little more general, right? Like when you're going on LinkedIn to connect with employers and recruiters, go in again with the same mindset of here is something that I want out of this conversation and here's how I'm going to attempt to get it. Even if it's, hey, Allison, saw you on LinkedIn, saw this position on Geico's careers website. I'm going to apply, or I have applied, right? So I've gotten a lot of emails that are like, hey, I'm going to apply. That doesn't do much for me as a recruiter. The ones that we feel like is either, hey, I have applied to this position. Can you let me know? Because then that jumping off point, I can go in and say, okay, this person applied, they're on this next step. Or, hey, this person applied and they got rejected from the process. Why did they get stopped? Like, what is the reason and how can I help? And that's kind of, that's my take on LinkedIn. And of course, you can connect with me.
Thanks. So we have another good question in the chat of what we've mentioned so far about some of the questions. I know Tiffany said the top 5 questions that she gets every single career fair, kind of the cookie cutter version, and instead try to ask some more memorable questions that show you've done your research, show you're really passionate and care about this position. So Catherine had asked, what are some questions that you have been asked recently that were really memorable or really made you sit back and think? Can you think of any off the top of your head you might want to share with the audience?
I think some of the questions that were really great for me in a 5-10 minute conversations were really about how that individual can learn and pursue their passions, their academic or professional interests, and what opportunities do they have to give back to the community, right? And I think that speaks volumes about the characteristics of those individuals and what they want to do, and if they're culturally aligned, right, to the values of that company. So really, questions that kind of show who you are, right? And show what you want to do. Show your own personal mission, and how you want to impact the world. Because at Mantech, we solve our government's problems. We partner heavily government agencies across the world, and we develop system solutions to really make the world a more secure place. And that is mission oriented. That's mission critical right there. So to me, that question spoke out to me a lot because it really aligns with our company culture. So along with that, as everybody, even me, right? I've been in the interview process. I've applied for jobs, right? As we all have. One of the best pieces of advice that I had ever gotten was to, of course, look at the company website, but to look at the values, right? The values or the principles or, just the buzzwords that they have in the culture, and tailor your conversation around that. Tailor your questions around those aspects of the company, because again, that shows your alignment, both culturally, from an innovation standpoint, from a personality and behavior standpoint. It shows your alignment to the company, and recruiters and hiring managers will remember that.
Thank you. Anyone else with some of the memorable questions?
I would say something very similar, a question that shows how your experience relates to what you think the company is looking for, something that gives a little insight to your perspective, is going to be something that is going to get you the information that you want better, as well as helping the recruiter remember you because they have actually learned something about you. So a lot what you said about showing yourself and your personality.
Yeah, 100%. I think there are definitely different questions for different scenarios too. So just being aware of where you are. Usually if you're in the career fair space, right? Like if you're in this one-on-one space where you're getting this feedback, you probably want to ask questions related to some more of the overview topics. And then if you're doing a recruiter phone screen where you've already sent me your transcript, you've sent me your resume, make sure that you're tailoring the question to that particular position. So some of my favorite questions from, some technology development program applicants that I've had are, what technologies are your companies using? What is the structure in your technology organization? Asking questions about methodologies or concepts that we look at using, right? Like things that as students, you can work on things that do not change across industry, but you can get specific information. So do think about, questions that can help you keep growing.
Great. Thank you. And we have 5 minutes left, and I know I need to stay on time. So I have 2 more pre-submitted questions that I'm going to try to get through. For the folks asking questions in the discussion group, I'm so glad you're asking questions and engaging. Please stay for the last 45 minutes where you can talk to all these recruiters one-on-one in the chat booths, as well as career and professional development advisors, where you can continue to ask your individual questions. So one of the questions that was pre-submitted that I want to touch on is the elevator pitch. What are the elements that are really important, really make an elevator pitch stand out for you?
I love the elevator pitch. I gotta tell you, I first learned what an elevator pitch when I was in sales, because I don't know if you all know this, but an elevator pitch is named so because literally salespeople would have only 30 seconds. And if you're in the elevator, for instance, with a key person, that's it. You have 30 seconds or less to give that pitch and to make that lasting impression. I'll give you a real world example too. Prior to Symantec, I worked at another company, same thing, running the student programs and college recruiting program. And I actually got into the elevator with one of the VPs. And I was new at the time. And I had my elevator pitch ready to go. And I whipped it out in the elevator. That sounds bad. Sorry, please excuse that. But I basically stated my elevator pitch to that person, and that person, well, we had a great relationship. We talked a lot about recruiting. We talked about stats. We talked about how to improve the pipeline. So it works. So to answer your question, the 3 aspects that I always recommend people when developing their elevator pitch is, well, 1, who you are, what's your name? Two, what your title is or position, or in this case, if you're a student, where do you go to school and what are you majoring in? And three, what is the impact that you have, right? So what does the impact that your work does? So if you have a job, right, and you're saying, okay, well, this, I impact this project and this helps, blah, blah, blah. Or if you're in school and you're, let's just say cybersecurity major, you state your name, your school, your major, and what classes or even academic projects you've done that highlight your passion for cyber and how they've impacted, X, Y, and Z. So those are my three aspects of the pitch.
So for me, an elevator pitch when you're looking at when you're in a career fair, the career fair setting, I am looking for eligibility requirements, right? So when you come to me, you say, my name is Allison Hanson. I am a junior with an anticipated graduation date of X. I am studying Y. My GPA is ABC, and I'm really excited to learn more about this position or looking to get into this field. I know that your company has this department. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, right? So even right there, that is somewhat of an elevator pitch, right? I've told you who I am, what I'm interested in, what about your company interests me, and I've given you a call to action. So I've asked you as somebody else to give me information that I didn't already have, specifically a department, right? So if you're a cybersecurity major, ask, how big is your cybersecurity department? And that question lets them know that you're interested in the areas as well.
So just to build off of that, really when someone gives you an elevator pitch, the thing that kind of, to me, always marks it as, okay, this is great, or this is completely irrelevant to what I'm doing, is the person giving the pitch's self-awareness. Do they understand their position, how it relates to mine, and how our goals are somehow in line? So it is kind of what you were saying with values, but it requires a little bit of self-evaluation. An elevator pitch is all about really knowing yourself well enough to present yourself. So looking at your background, your goals, and where you are in between those things and how you present your background to help you move towards your goals is what you want to look at. So your elevator pitch won't be the same necessarily to every recruiter you talk to. You're going to have the same foundation, but you do want to change up a little something so that it makes sense with the goals of whoever you're talking to.
I'll piggyback off of that just a little bit, because it really boils down to confidence, right? So I encourage my students, and just like Tiffany said, your passion projects, the reason why we say these things, we want you to give us your most confident foot forward. Speak about the things that you know. I mean, that's what's going to set you apart from your peers, is really knowing how to talk about yourself.
Great. So thank you so much to all three of our panelists for sharing such great information and for taking the time to join us for the first half of today's event. So quick little round of applause, virtual round of applause. Please remember that you can visit Career and Professional Development's website at career.vt.edu for more information and resources on preparing for a virtual career fair and so much more. And please feel free to make an appointment with us at vt.joinhandshake.com. We will be moving into our one-on-one networking portion of the event, where you will be able to get in line to speak with a company representative, one of these four today, or meet with a career advisor for the Career Professional Development booth. Please remember that at the networking booths will close promptly at 5 p.m., and you will receive a brief survey a few minutes after the event today to gather some feedback on today's program. Thank you so much again for attending Digital Connect, and good luck to everybody at the career fairs. Thank you.
Thank you all.